farmer, do not sell everything.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Do not even get into the granary and remove everything.
Yes.
And the farmer is saying, but how can I not do that? School fees is
Yes.
on my neck.
Yes.
I have this. And then they're saying, but you will have an increment in malnutrition if you, and hunger obviously, if you sell off everything.
Yes.
But do you think that is because of that pressure of the transitioning, the pressure of not knowing that, you know what, there is a divide, and how do you harmonize all this between feeding the home, yourself and the home,
yes.
and then actually making some money, the business side of it? Do you think that that complex is still blurred? That complexity, that gray area has not really been figured out as yet. Is that what you're saying?
It's what I'm saying, and even to build that point further, I'll tell you this, that you see, even if you look at the structuring of the agriculture sector in this country and the larger region, it is that with the onset of formal education in this country, which you can take a mark about in 1895 when we had the first school set up, Mengo Senior School, 1895, and you had the first graduation to all other economic activities over and above agriculture.
Yes.
Right? Trade was like the immediate one, which was like right after agriculture, but people deemed the failures.
The failures, the dirty jobs.
Yes.
Yes.
In fact, so much so that the word mulimi is an insult in this country. Yes. It's an insult in a country in which agriculture should be the backbone
68%.
of this economy. Yes. So that is the reality in which we need to understand this discussion.
But this is changing. This is changing.
Yes.
You have quite a lot of optimism towards agriculture. In fact, that particular omulimi is changing. You have more and more youth right now, and even the blue collars, the elites actually getting into agriculture and saying, by the way, this stereotype is not actually what it should be. Let us change. It is, you can't get a lot of money, you can't be able to successfully live. So I think the narrative is changing in regards to that. Do you think it has changed to such a point that it is sustainable?
I do not think it has changed so much or sufficiently yet. And the reason is simple, because even when you are getting more or better caliber practitioners, should I say, there are still some major drawbacks, and I'll talk about a few of them. One major drawback is that Uganda, in being blessed as having
85% arable land.
Yes, we have many factors that make us competitive in agriculture, right?
Conducive.
But that comes with a curse. The curse is that it makes agricultural products highly abundant in this country. And in terms of business construct, again, in the business arena, basic premise will tell you that scarcity creates value. Things that are abundant are not given due value.
They are devalued.
Right? And in fact, there's a famous diamond water paradox, where water is like, there's a phrase that says water is life. If you didn't have water for a few days, you would actually die. But water is of very or no value compared to diamond, right? And if diamond in its isolation is a useless product. Right? It's of no real value to humanity in a real sense. It would not sustain your life with anything. It only has an intrinsic value that it was given that makes it a valuable product, right? But because of its scarcity, its value goes up. Water, because of its abundance, its value goes down. So Uganda, as an agricultural country, has what we would call an abundant curse, a curse of abundance of product. And so even as the elite come in, some fundamentals need to change, where we move that abundance to areas of scarcity and get value that we deserve from it. And those are the fundamental shifts that need to happen with the help of the better caliber players or practitioners to move the sector forward.
So what you're saying is that basically with better caliber practitioners coming in, we should not be able to have as much cassava down in our markets as we should want, because you would want that more and more cassava there's quite a lot of value addition onto the cassava. There's quite a lot of value addition onto the sweet potatoes. Get into any particular market right now, you will find those things just heaped Yes, a heap, just a big heap, and that's 2,000. You can't even get it for 1,000. So really the average Ugandan is saying, but I can get this anytime. I can get potatoes, I can get cassava, I can get matoke anytime. But if the high caliber practitioner comes in, and when we say high caliber, it's in no way to demote. These are just subjective words. We will not blanket it accordingly to that in any discriminatory way. Now, when you're saying that it is that practitioner who should come in and add value, who should come in and say, you know what, you can't find as much matoke just lying around on the market. It should come direct to the factory and be turned into flour. Is that what you're saying?
That's part of it, but not the main part. The main part is that we need to develop markets that are far from areas of high concentration, far from origin being Uganda. You need to export to countries that where these products are scarce. Begin with the region. Begin with South Sudan, for example, where because of their turmoil and their distractions with other things, they have a shortage of food. Look at Kenya, for example, where our products, even when they go there, that's why they are giving these protection bans against our products, because we're able to produce so much at much lower cost, and we're able to be competitive in their markets, right? Look at the Middle East, look at Europe, look at the US. We need these products to areas where they are extremely scarce.
And then create a scarcity here?
Not necessarily. We need to create a balance, because here, for now, in terms of pricing and the economics of it, we are flooded, and that is why, for example, the typical average farmer here, you would still consider them as poor individuals.
That's true.
Because for what they are producing, they are getting so little.
Very little.
It's as simple as that. So we need to get them more lucrative markets in which what they are producing is better appreciated because of its scarcity there. That's what's about it.
This is almost a contradiction, but it makes sense. It does make sense. So when you do that, and this has happened in Kenya, yes, it has happened with this grain. It has happened with actually a shift away from what they predominantly at one time ate into more grain. But now you get to see that quite a lot of fixation is really production. And I say this, I stand to be corrected, is production of export-inclined crops. So you have quite a lot of Hass, avocado, you have anything that will actually be exported, the Kenyans will take it up. But then in one way or another, then you have a reliance on grain. That means any particular shock, any particular drought, anything, and lo and behold, the Kenyans will literally suffer from inflation, through hunger, and all these different things. Isn't that the same that will happen this side?
It wouldn't if we designed it better. I keep saying that the benefit of being behind in a race is learning from those that are ahead of you and avoiding the pitfalls that befell them. And so one example of how we could make or redesign the sector is that, having talked about the original structure where I said agriculture was left to the failures, and those that were deemed more successful because of their better formal education were deployed in other sectors. What is unfairly happening as of now is that those citizens of this country who are currently deployed in the better paying sectors are earning better but paying poor prices to those they left in agriculture, which is unfair. That is why, for example, agriculture today as a start is employing 73% of the Ugandan population, but contributing only 24% of GDP. You can see the mismatch there. Now, it means what would, in the new construct, which can even be strategic even for those that are not in agriculture, I give the example that one of the emerging trends now, or the emerging truths, is that health is the new wealth for anyone trying to live a productive life. And the biggest contributor to good health is good food, right? So it's of strategic importance to those earning a decent income to live a good life by eating good food and paying good value for good food. That mindset shift alone will transform this country.
Okay.
and change the fundamentals of agriculture from being a poor man's sector to a sector that is respected, and where the producers are getting good value for their hard work.
Isn't this the ethos of value addition? So that the bottom line, the farmer is able to get a better price. Instead of, for example, the cassava, yes, instead of getting 3,000 for a heap, right now you can find that in any market right now in Uganda, even less than that. Instead of doing that, add some value to it. Be able to have the flour, the cassava flour. Be able to get the starch, which is quite expensive, the starch from cassava, so that this other person who is earning, yes, from the workplace will be able to walk into any supermarket, any grocery shop, and be able to fork out 6,500 or 7,500 or even 5,000 for a kilo instead of just buying it at 2,000 and 1,000. Isn't that the same line of thought that is being pushed?
Value addition also is important, is necessary, and not even just for the fact that it increases the value of what would have been originally just a basic raw material, but it also increases the shelf life of a product that would have otherwise been more perishable. Good examples are, the fruits that are moved from fresh to dried,
definitely,
and they get better value and last a longer time on the shelf. The meats and all these kinds of products, adding value to them would be worthwhile. And also, value addition is strong because in doing so, it also creates a lot of employment, right? There are so many jobs in the value addition chain, from warehousing to processing to the guys doing the machinery to the guys running the plants and all these things that come around with it. So it's also important that value addition is a major thing, but also it would not work in isolation. It comes with a mindset change from all quarters, especially the consumers, that need to appreciate paying good value for what has been added value to, and as well as pushing a part of that product away to markets where they are scarce, so that we don't create an abundance that tanks the prices.
This is quite a lot, quite a detailed intro, Mr. Tugbe. Let me just get a hint of this, okay? One, look at aspects in which we can avoid overflooding of our markets, because we are so blessed. We are so blessed with the fertile soils, the right conducive factors. Let us look for a way in which we can shift away to other areas, looking at different markets, so that we avoid this overflooding of the markets. Let's also look at the value addition, and look at ways in which, number three, really look at the ways in which the mindset can actually be changed, because it is still within subsistence mode and has not really transitioned into that part of commercial farming. And also be able to address that part where you're looking at the blurred areas. For the person who is still navigating and trying to figure out subsistence, how do I feed my family? You are doing that, and yet there has been a call, but there is no particular roadmap on how this can be done entirely. And that is why you still have farmers dipping within their granary, trying to go all full-blown commercial, but it seems not to be working. At the end of the day, they are actually selling off their food that they could be using. And ones, in one way or another, actually impact the uptake of the agriculture credit financing, right? And it is on that note that we will start off. But before we do that, let's take a short break. We'll be right back after this message. Very interesting. Coming back from that. Very interesting, actually. I did.
Smart 24, driving business.
Get all the football on DSTV Cutback for only 110,000 shillings per month.
Bulu Magic is my joy. Ono Bulu Magic, Ayo, Talaba Kumabala, Atukuza no Nidida, Ochiraka Nyangi, Taisa will be fabriki, Jonata Chirichi, Guara Bulu Magic is my choice. Ono Bulu Magic, Wange. And the Bulu Magic is my choice. Hey, Ono Bulu Magic, Wange.
Uganda fire, Ediba fire, Ababona fire. Banange mwebale okuwagira Uganda Queens nga nambonezebwa okugula w'emiryango mwebale kwambala langi zaffe n'emijoozi gyaffe mu ssanyu muyiwawo mubiri wadde tuwangudde ne bwe tuba tukubiddwa eddiba kati nno Uganda Queens nga yeetegekera okwambalagana ne South Africa embono ate yo South Sudan yakwambalagana nayo mu October olwo baddiŋŋane ne South Africa ne Congo mu November ogwamweki kuleeta fire anti awali omuwagizi wammwe Uganda Queens tuma Uganda fire bikutuusiddwako MTN omuwagizi wa Uganda Queens nambeemu nga tuli wamu tewali kitulema.
Smart 24, driving business.
Welcome back from the break. This is Doreen Kemcha, still here, Business Insight. Now we do have Richard Tugume today, Ikayo, who is giving us quite some, not what we expected, actually, quite some deep insight, but that should be able to relate really, because this is quite some very good insight into why and the going-ons, the details, the detailing around agricultural credit financing in Uganda and what is surrounding it. And coming in is that tone of the culture of different attitudes and mindsets. And we want to find out, Richard, how is this, given the first part, the intro with how we started off, how is this really connected now with financing? Let's get right down into agriculture financing. How is this? Is it an impediment? Should there be a different design? How is this now related to the agricultural credit financing?
Okay, thank you, Doreen. In understanding the relationship, let me give some more detail at a micro level of the profile of your typical farmer in a country called Uganda, right? So your typical farmer in this country is one who, going by the start of more than 85% of agricultural production in this country is by smallholder farmers, where smallholder farming is defined as farming on 5 acres or less. Number two is that, again, based on the history I gave earlier, they are typically of limited or no formal education, right? Number three is that, and this is still transient, but currently more dominant is the fact that they are also of relatively advanced age, and I'll qualify the word advanced by at least 55 years and above. Number four is that they also have limited geographical exposure, meaning that they were born, bred, and have lived in a limited geographical area, which I would like to maybe give an example of, maybe a county or maximum like a district. So they have not ventured away outside the border of a district.
Is low.
It's very, very limited. And so if you look at that profile, it's a profile that is the foundation of the entire sector. That is at the micro level, that is the profile you're talking about. Now, when you talk about uptake, the uptake is affected by the nature of that profile. That it does not have a business sense to the practice of agriculture. They do not have the sophistication of being even to keep basic records of expenses and revenues in what they are practicing. They do not have a strong sense of savings and investment, right? A strong sense of diversifying their income streams. And so given that, that environment, let me call it an environment, the instrument of agricultural financing cannot thrive in such a difficult environment. However good the instrument may be, the environment is not conducive enough to enable it to thrive.
Okay.
That will be my summary of why we are struggling to have sufficient penetration.
And to address these gaps here, you do have the cooperatives. Yes, we do not shoot them down immediately. Let us just highlight them. I know you have something on your tongue right now to shoot them down. But cooperatives, they can be used and they should be used really to address the gap of the illiteracy, bringing in financial literacy, which is happening, bringing in the different ways in which these there can be different wealth streams, bringing in the income streams and the different activities really that can be made. This is happening with the cassava farmers up in northern Uganda. You can make this, you can make that, sell the cassava, make the starch. This is happening under the cooperatives training. And then of course when it comes to geographical exposure, they do facilitate. We're just hinging right now on the cooperatives, and this is why they're being fronted so much. And then bringing in of course the fact that you do have farm to farm tours, not only just within Uganda, they've reached out to Kenya, they've reached out to South Africa. So to have them have more exposure. Then smallholder farmers as well, you'd have had these particular locations where they are saying within this particular region, let us have more and more farmers come together and maybe plant coffee. Let us have more farmers coming, like the Bushenyi area, Bushenyi, the Antonde, all these particular areas coming together. Since you are already culturally, traditionally doing bananas, you could as well continue focusing on the bananas. So you do see a little bit of rectification going on.
True.
What is still the impediment?
True. I'll say this, even to clarify and even allay your fears, I'm actually one of the biggest proponents of I have been privileged in my career, especially in agricultural financing, to have worked with and helped build some of the best cooperatives in the region. So I have nothing against them.
No.
What I must say is that the cooperative structure is arguably the best business vehicle to uplift smallholder farmers. Helping them with their collective bargaining and reducing their overhead costs with high caliber inputs, but there actually is here, which also is a challenge in this country and across the region, is the fact that cooperatives live and die by the caliber of their governance. Good governance, they will thrive. Bad governance, they will die.
That's happening in Bali.
Yes.
That's happening
in many
Bali,
places.
yes, and other places as well.
Unfortunately, bad governance, for now, is superseding good governance. And that's also from a societal standpoint, which you'd appreciate. The aspect of values, ethics, integrity is a big challenge in the country and the region. And so cooperatives suffer from that. But when and if governance is a sorted out thing,
it should be
the
able to
cooperatives thrive, and I have seen them thrive. So it is one way in which indeed they can be, smallholder farmers can be uplifted. They can take on big financing. I'm talking about companies that have taken on millions of dollars of financing and have performed well and uplifted farmers, got them certified, got them premium markets from abroad, got them social impact interventions like health, education, renewable energy and all these kinds of things. So I have seen them thrive and become microeconomies of their own. But like I said, governance is their biggest
number one problem.
Yes.
Now let's get back actually to what you were talking under the profiling. Yeah. So what can be done? Yes, largely illiterate, limited exposure due to the confinement geographically, and then of course advanced age. Of course, you do have quite a number still getting in that are younger, but then predominantly you still have these assets in the hands of the older generations, and not much is being done about that. And then of course the smallholder farmers. Now that we know, what is it about the design that is there of the agriculture credit financing that is not maybe taking into context some of these profilings, the components of the profiling? Why is it that the design is just looking at the blanketing and making assumptions? Could we say that the design of some of these facilities is more or less not looking at the intricacies, those detailing that you are highlighting, and what should be done about that?
I'll say this, that most of the products, ACF being one of them, the obvious challenge, in my personal opinion, is that they are interventions that are not, they're trying to do what is easy, what is convenient, not necessarily what should be done, right? And what should be done, because it requires a lot of heavy lifting, which many people don't like doing, but it has to be done. And also, it has to be done over the long term. This is not something that will
you can't pick up and drop off.
It's a long haul thing. Sometimes even cross-generational. For the business model you're trying to finance, right? The other one is also, aside of the agronomy, there are also some very peculiar, let me call them socio-economic dynamics that are unique to agriculture. And let me give a typical example. Agriculture by nature, for most of the value chains, and let me use the crops for example, they are of a nature where, of the 12 months of the year, January to December, the months in which you earn a revenue are very short and concentrated because of the harvest nature. You know, you need to plant a seed, the seed has to grow as you weed, then you harvest, you know, and then replant. And that's for the seasonal crops. And the perennials also, whether it is coffee, cocoa, and the like, you have a harvest season 3 or 4 months of the 12 months in which there is a revenue, and the other months there is no revenue. And why that matters so much is that because of that constraint of the nature of the revenue cycle of that, and the fact that expenses for those farmers do not respect that cycle, you know, that I only appear as an expense when you have money, and when you have no money, I will not appear as an expense. The expenses, when the expenses overwhelmingly appear at a time when there is no revenue for this farmer, what they do is sell the flowers. It's called selling the flowers. And they sell the flowers for a value that is not more than 30%. In most of the studies that have been done of what would have been the harvest value. So if I'm a coffee farmer with a garden worth $100, the harvest is going to come up in 3 months' time, but my child falls ill today and needs a surgery worth $70. I will need to sell my coffee for $30 of every $100 worth now as flowers, only to serve my child and forfeit 70% of my value 3 months from now.
Yes.
That is a dynamic in the sector that is inherent, right? That the funders, the financiers need to be alive to.
Are not picking it up.
Yes, because they don't have the depth. You only get the depth when you are dedicated, when you are specialized, and you are concentrating to understand and serve it better.
But I thought that the model that is being preached right now is more or less looking at addressing that gap with different crops being brought in. You have those ones that, and this is why there is more or less mixed farming being pushed for. But the fact that there should be respect to how it used to be in the traditional way. Yes, maybe you could talk about the contradiction in that, knowing that we should be going forward. But even as we're going forward, we are picking up some of the good things that were done before. For example, you have the coffee, that one not necessarily relying entirely on the coffee, but you are mixed planting as well with the cocoa, which will also give you its own maturity time. And then, of course, you do have the bananas every month. You're cutting, you're selling. You have all these different things. And then you have the mangoes. You have something on the side. That is being preached, especially when it comes down to the different models that should be working. What are they looking at to have this consistency in the incomes for the different farmers? So why wouldn't the bankers be picking that on? Should they be as partners, not necessarily just in the financing aspect, but also to be able to have the linkage for these particular models? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes. I'm saying that and more. And the more is that diversification is important. However, again, it must be addressed based on the realities of what I would like to call the fundamentals. And what are the fundamentals? Going back to my earlier submission, you're talking about smallholder farming on 5 acres and less. That's one fundamental. We can't run away from that. That is structure. The other one is that, remember, again, these farming families, like any other family or activity, they have generational succession, right? So you have Mr. Farmer now, who is a patriarch. He has 4 or 5 children. And already he's of advanced age, like I told you, meaning that he doesn't have a long time to live. So what happens when he passes on? Again, the other dynamic you need to be alive to is that the cultural inheritance practice in this country is that on the passing on of the patriarch, the land is subdivided amongst the children. So what becomes of the 5 acres for one farmer? It now goes back to 1 acre per farmer, right? I actually have coined a term where I say, what we talk about smallholder farming today, in a few decades from now, we're going to talk about microholder farming, right? From small to micro. From much less. So again, what does that mean? That again, the financiers must be alive to that dynamic. Top of my head, one of the solutions for this going forward is that, again, leveraging on a better caliber farmer now, because the child of this current farmer is of better caliber because we now have the UPE, USE, you have the smartphone coverage is much higher now, and all these things, the telecoms. The activities upstream of the value chain into warehousing, distribution, processing, retailing, and all these things, reduce pressure on the land in terms of numbers, and leave 1 or 2 higher caliber quality siblings to do the land and do it better than their parent could ever do it, and have a higher production and productivity
Yeah.
that moves the sector forward.
And this will be the beneficiary, the most
Yes. Yes.
optimal beneficiary
Exactly, and then
for the
and
financing.
the financing now would be structured with that design in mind, so that it's not just some haphazard thing where the money defaults and you're wondering what happened. So we need to take some thought leadership, because certain things can be anticipated, and then we plan for them in advance without waiting for them to
get out of hand. And it's because of this cyclical nature. The design is not appropriate. The design is not actually in tune with the reality down on ground. The design is more or less looking at a different forecast, looking at the business side of it, and not taking into consideration some of these things that you've raised. And because this design is not as skewed to what the reality that is there, that is why there is a very, very low recovery rate. And once this is over and over being registered within the different financial institutions, then they become a little bit cautious.
True.
Giving out these finances.
Yes.
It has been reported in quite a number of places that even with different testimonies coming in from farmers, that you will go there seeking an agricultural, financing, yes, or loan, and they will try to sell you something else.
Yes.
Something else because of the way the recovery rate is so low. And all these different things.
True.
Let's try to wrap it up, because it's so, and we should have another series of this surely, because we cannot exhaust this right now. Even with all this that is happening, given what is there right now, the situation right now, just wrap it up with how many want of SEF, especially of the agricultural financing, immediate stuff that should be done right now. And then you will you'll transition straight with the forecast of what should be, things such as the micro that should be taken into consideration. Yes, just move away from what should be done right now and then move over to the future.
Let me say this. In my personal opinion, what I would propose as interventions first to improve
short-term
ACF and other things. They need to be done in the short term, but their results are more medium term, should I say. The result will be seen beginning medium term into long term. My really first and biggest one is for a big part of that funding by government should be put into coaching and mentoring farmers at their points of organization, especially in the cooperatives, and the beginning with the smallholder farmers who are the biggest best. In the aspects of a mindset change from practicing agriculture not as a livelihood or a lifestyle, but in business mode. That alone is heavy lifting.
Yes.
As a mindset shift. The other one is the aspect of financial literacy, right? Very basic financial literacy to make them appreciate the aspect of saving and investment, right? Also heavy lifting, however basic it is. And the third one, and also arguably one of the biggest, is the aspect of what I would like to call soft skills and values, right? Where farmers are coached and mentored in a manner that improves their value system, right? The aspects of integrity, the aspects of honesty, keeping your word, even basic things like timekeeping. You know, they are so important as a fundamental to grow the sector and be able to attract financing and pay back those loans. That for me is the backbone of that whole discussion.
Do you think it will really matter? Things like integrity, do you think it will matter? Or what matters is the fact, are you doing bookkeeping? Do you have those particular records? Isn't that what they ask for? Do they go for integrity?
No, it matters because in basic due diligence, when you're doing the due diligence, the bookkeeping comes in and all these things, but the biggest aspect in due diligence is character. It is said, any lender will tell you, that there's a big difference between ability to pay, which is the bookkeeping is going to tell you competence, experience in the sector, they keep their books and all these things, but it's very different from what is called the willingness to pay. I may be able to pay you,
Yes.
but am I willing to pay you? And the willingness comes from the value system. Do I think it's a good thing for me to pay back my loan, for example, even when I'm able to?
Yeah.
That is about character, and that is something
It has to
that
be
is-
attached as well.
Yes, it needs to be made front and center of this discussion, because and unfortunately, it is the biggest, it's the most challenging aspect of a due diligence to actually get right, to prove that this person's character is one that has sufficient willingness to pay. It is like the biggest thing. And then let me run quickly into what the future holds and what the opportunity is going into the future. I would say that one of the things that gives me the biggest hope about and excited about the future of this sector, that of course will come with the high uptaking of these financing facilities, is that we as a country, as a region, have a big bulk of young people now, some of the biggest segments in the world by percentage. And these young people are obviously more energetic, they are better educated now, like I said, they are better exposed, they are more tech savvy, and so they have all these things they can leverage to improve the sector. That caliber of farmer, if designed right in a way they can be attracted into farming, they'll be able to also to better manage the value addition that we've been craving for as a country and as a sector for a very, very long time, because of that better caliber that they bring to the table. And they will also be able to answer the call to reduce the abundance of production here that is driving value low, and be able to push it to areas of scarcity
Where it's needed.
where it is needed. And you can see how it ties in with a lot of the Ugandans we have in diaspora now, who are able to give us market intel in wherever they reside.
Yeah.
They can be a good collaboration with their peers who are in country and are producing these products. They can be our ambassadors there, our marketers and all these kinds of things. So the future is bright, but the future needs to be worked for and designed in the right way.
With the persons, just quickly speaking, with the people that the so-called high caliber that that you're talking about, with those ones that have been brought into the system to give you these returns, definitely they will ditch, and you have seen quite a number of them ditch their corporate jobs and go straight full-blown into agriculture. That is actually on the increase, and right now they're coming to it actually from the business sense, from the business. It is a very steady growth, but it is steady, just an increase. And more should be done actually to lower them. If you get out right there with maybe agro-tourism that is actually on the increase in Uganda, and the people who are radically pushing for it and making it fun, and it is all over social media right now with a couple of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people glorifying and glamorizing agriculture and all this. But however, you also have those